Imagine you're standing in a quarry. In front of you, a single stone block the size of a small house. 20 tons, 30, maybe more. No trucks, no steel cables, no engines, no rubber tires. And here's the part that should make your brain itch. In many ancient places, the wheel either wasn't used for heavy hauling or it was useless on the terrain. Yet the stones moved anyway, across sand, across mud, up hills, into perfect alignment. Sometimes across water. So today we're going to answer one question with ruthless clarity. How did humans move giant stones without wheels? Not with mystery, not with magic. With physics, logistics, and a kind of patient brutality that turns forests into machines. The first rule: make the stone lighter without touching its weight. If you remember one principle, remember this. Ancient movers didn't beat gravity. They reduced friction and controlled force. Weight is the enemy you can't negotiate with. But friction? Friction can be bullied. And the wheel is just one way to bully friction. If wheels are missing, you replace them with systems that do the same job. Sledges that slide instead of roll, rollers that turn the ground into a moving surface, lubrication to cut friction hard, ropes that turn human pulling into steady force, levers that multiply strength, ramps that trade distance for height, water that turns land transport into floating transport. That's the toolkit. Now let's walk through it like a crew leader planning the job. The sledge. The simplest vehicle that doesn't roll a wheel is a rotating sledge. So if you don't have wheels, you go backward. You drag the load. Picture a thick wooden platform under the stone. The platform has runners, like a big flat ski. You tie ropes. You pull. That sounds crude, but the brilliance is this. A sledge spreads the stone's pressure across more surface area. Instead of a block digging into soil and stopping, the load becomes, floaty. Not floating in the air, floating in the sense that it doesn't sink and lock itself. Now scale up the human engine. Pullers in teams, a lead caller keeping rhythm, spare ropes ready when fibers snap, wooden braces to keep the stone from sliding off, and anchors behind the load so it can't slide backward on slopes. If you've ever tried dragging something heavy and felt it catch, you know the problem. The start is the hardest moment. That's why ancient hauling was often about starting and stopping safely, not about speed. One more detail matters: the path. You don't drag a megalith across random ground. You build a road out of whatever your environment gives you: packed earth, reeds, logs, stone, chips, or mud. Yes, mud. And this leads to the next upgrade. Wet the road. The secret that isn't secret: if you reduce friction, the same pulling force moves more weight. So what's the cheapest lubricant in the ancient world? Water. Wet. Sand can become firmer and smoother than dry sand. Wet clay can become a controlled slide. A thin film of water can keep a wooden sledge from biting into the ground. There's a reason many heavy haul routes hugged rivers, canals, or places where water could be carried easily. And once water is in the equation, an entire new strategy appears. Don't fight the ground. Use it. Mud is annoying for feet. But for dragging, mud can be a conveyor. Rollers, turning the earth into a moving machine. If you can't roll the stone, roll the ground under it. You place logs beneath the stone. As the stone moves, the back log is picked up and carried to the front. Repeat, repeat, repeat. This method is brutally efficient when the terrain cooperates. But rollers have weaknesses. They sink in soft ground. They slip on uneven slopes. They require lots of timber. They demand constant coordination. Rollers work best on prepared tracks, flat, firm, and predictable, which is why the smartest ancient crews didn't choose one method. They combined them. Sledge on a prepared road, rollers where the track was strong enough, wet sand in the worst stretches. Now we go to the king of small tools that becomes a monster at scale: levers. The tool that turns one person into 10. A lever is the oldest power multiplier on Earth. It's not glamorous. It's not mysterious. But it changes everything. With levers you can lift one edge of a stone to place a support to nudge a block into alignment without losing control. Raise a stone gradually by cribbing underneath. Cribbing is the unsung hero. You lift a corner a tiny amount, slide a wooden block under it, lift again, add another block. Build a small wooden tower under the stone. You never heave the stone into the air. You ratchet it upward in safe, repeatable increments. That's how you raise something heavy without needing to be a giant. And once you can raise a stone, you can put it on a sledge. Once it's on a sledge, you can move it. This is a logistics story, not a strength story. Ropes and rhythm, how humans behave like a single engine. A rope is a power tool if enough people hold it. But the real advantage of ropes isn't just pulling, it's control. Ropes let you pull from multiple angles, prevent sideways drift, break the load on declines, coordinate movement with signals and rhythm. Ancient hauling crews often moved like a living machine. Call and response, timed heaves, pauses, resets. Because if you pull at random, the force spikes. That snaps ropes. It twists sledges. It injures people. But if you pull together, the force becomes steady and manageable. A heavy stone doesn't require one heroic moment. It requires thousands of small, disciplined moments. Now we arrive at the method that makes modern people underestimate ancient people the most. Ramps, trading distance for height. If you have to lift a stone, don't lift it vertically, turn. Up, into, forward. That's what a ramp does. A ramp is not a magic staircase. It's a bargain. You pull the stone a long distance in exchange. You reduce the force needed at any moment. The steeper the ramp, the more force you need. The longer the ramp, the less force you need. So ancient builders could choose the ramp like a dial, short and steep if manpower was huge, long and gentle if manpower was limited, or segmented ramps with landings for rest and resets. And ramps weren't always straight lines. They could be zigzags hugging a hill, spiral ramps wrapping around a structure, temporary earthen slopes that were removed later. At places like Great Pyramid of Giza, the basic idea is consistent across many theories. You solve the vertical problem by turning it into a horizontal hauling problem. And hauling is what ancient societies were optimized for: people, rope, wood, rhythm, patience. But what if the stone isn't just going uphill? What if it needs to cross distance? That's when the smartest solution appears. Float it. When the road becomes water, water transport is the ancient world's cheat code. A stone that is impossible to drag over rough ground becomes manageable once it's on a boat or raft. Because buoyancy doesn't care how heavy your stone feels to you, it cares about displacement. So ancient movers would often quarry near waterways when possible, build canals or use seasonal floods, move blocks by barge, then drag the final stretch. You can see why rivers were strategic highways. They weren't just for drinking and farming, they were freight infrastructure. And this is one reason monumental sites cluster near water routes. Now let's address the big popular examples, because your brain probably wants them. Case files, famous stones, very human solutions. Stonehenge moving stones over land likely meant combinations of sledges, rollers, prepared paths, and manpower, plus careful staging. The real wonder isn't one trick. It's organization, feeding crews, planning routes, managing seasons, and preventing disaster. Easter Island. The Moai statues raise a different question. Not just transport, but upright movement and positioning. Many proposals focus on controlled rocking, sledges, and coordinated rope teams. Again, not superpowers, systems. Baalbek, when stones get absurdly large, you enter a world of leverage, cribbing, and staged hauling, moving in tiny increments, stabilizing constantly, building up the environment around the load until the environment itself is part of the machine. These places look impossible if you imagine a single day of work. They make sense when you imagine months of preparation and years of repetition. The real answer Ancient people built machines out of landscapes. When you ask, how did they move stones without wheels? You're really asking, how did they replace a technology with a process? And the process was prepare the path. Roads, tracks, packed earth, wet sand. Get the stone onto a mover. Sledges, rollers, cribbing. Control the force, ropes, anchors, braking lines. Change the geometry, ramps, zigzags, spirals. Use water when possible, barges, rafts, canals. Repeat safely, rhythm, resets, redundancy. That's not a mystery, that's engineering. The wheel is great, but the wheel is not the only way to think. Ancient builders didn't lack intelligence, they lacked engines. So they did what humans always do when power is limited. They multiplied it with organization. One stone, 1,000 small decisions. The final picture isn't a genius inventor shouting instructions. It's quieter than that. It's a road being leveled for days. It's rope being braided and tested. It's timber being cut and shaped into runners. It's water carried in jars not to drink, but to pour onto the ground because friction is the real enemy. And then, on the day the stone moves, it moves not because someone was strong enough, but because the entire world around that stone has been redesigned to let it slide.